Okay, welcome Nick to the International Book Fair here in Germany. I hope you're good.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, we have a few questions for you.
Okay.
So let's start with the first one. Tell us a little bit something about yourself.
Well, as it says behind me, I'm an aerospace engineer.
Yes.
I've done engineering work for IBM, and I've worked for General Motors for a while, worked for Microsoft for a while. I ended up working for Symantec for a while, so I've been working most of my life after getting my engineering degree, and now I'm doing a little writing, and hopefully some of the things that I'm writing about will change the world.
Okay, that sounds nice. Could you share with us some details about your book?
My books are things that I wanted to change in the world. You know, my first book was The Medical Project, and I wrote that book after my daughter died because I was very upset with the medical industry. I really didn't think they were using technology like they should use technology. And so I was going to write a technical book, but I decided to make it, I wanted people to buy the book, so I made it more of an action thriller fiction book.
Yes, very clever.
And it has two main characters, John and Kate, and the characters are very similar to Harrison Ford and Sandra Bullock. And so they are trying to change the medical industry, and when they're doing that, there are people that are trying to stop them. And the reason why is because to change the medical industry, they would actually lose a lot of money, these other people. But in the end, if you read the book, you'll find that it has, all my books have nice endings. And so John and Kate were able to change the medical industry, and they were loved around the world because of that, they saved many lives all over the world. And the second book I wrote with my son. He's suffering from schizophrenia. We found out that he was like in his third year of college. He came home, college break, and he was a little bit different. We didn't know what was going on, why he was different. And so what we ended up doing is taking him to a psychologist, saying, you know, we're not sure what's going on here. And then he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which was one of the worst days of my life. And we ended up sending him to a hospital where they tried to prescribe the right medicines for him. People that have schizophrenia are usually in and out of hospitals their whole life because they're always either getting off the medicines they're supposed to take or staying on the medicine. So they're in and out of hospitals and also in and out of jail. My son had a psychiatrist that retired after he'd been seeing this psychiatrist for 25 years. And what ended up happening is that he got off his medication. He saw something behind his house on a post that he thought was going to hurt him. You know, you and I would look at the post and he's, oh, that's a post with a device on the back. He looks at the post, some people with schizophrenia, and say, that looks like a bomb type of thing on that post that could actually hurt me. And so he called the police. And he says, you know, there's a bomb or some device behind my house that I think is going to hurt me. And the police end up coming to the house. My son was afraid. He didn't get out of the house. And so they tear gassed the house to get him out of the house. And they called me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and telling me, we have your house surrounded. We had to drag your son out of the house. And we ended up going there. We could barely go in the house. It was full of tear gas. The whole house was destroyed. Furniture was destroyed. And I ended up going to where he was brought to court, and he was found not guilty because of insanity. And I told my son, I said, you were off your meds, and so, we can't fight that. That's what happened. And so he ended up having to go to like a halfway house and also see a judge every 3 to 6 months. And one of the judges told my son, you understand this schizophrenia more than anybody that's ever come before me. And so my son got back to the house, he called me up and told me what the judge told him, and I said, you know what, we ought to write a book together. You write it from the standpoint of someone that's mentally ill and what you've gone through and how you became mentally ill, and I'll write it from the standpoint of how it affects the whole family, because when somebody's mentally ill, it affects the whole family. It affects them the most, but it affects the whole family. And so that's how we wrote the self-help book. And
it has two sides, one from you and one from your son.
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly. So the second book came from both of us writing that together, and there I found out how he became schizophrenic. And with him, and that's not all the cases, he was in his third year of college and he was saying he was smoking a lot of marijuana, which kids in college do nowadays, I guess. And so I did some research and I find out that a lot of people, when their brain is being formed between the ages of 15 and 25, and they're either taking drugs or something traumatic happens or they're smoking marijuana, they can, especially if there's some mental illness in your family, become schizophrenic. And that lasts your whole life. And that isn't really, we wanted to write that book to help other people that have some mental illness or something like that. And he also is very much on nutrition, so there's things in that book on nutrition and whatnot. Now, the third book I wrote, I was encouraged to write that book. I said, do you want, and I was asking, a publicist, what do you want, what should the third book be? And he said, the first book, why don't you have a book similar to the first book? So what I did was I took the same characters that are in the first book. The first book has two main characters, John and Kate, and they're very similar to like Harrison Ford and Sandra Bullock. And I put them in the third book, and that book has them solving other problems to make the world really a better place. So that was the third book. The fourth and the fifth book are still being developed. One is in...
So you're planning to write another book?
There's two more books that are coming out soon, and they have the same characters as in the first book. So it's like a series.
Okay, nice. So can you give us a sneak peek into what your next book might explore?
It has this John and Kate that are in the first book, and it goes into, I've traveled around the world, so I know a lot about some of the cultures in different parts of the country, and it goes into problems that I think are in the United States and that are in, let's say I was in Japan for several years, and Japan has an excellent education system from kindergarten to high school. But they don't have the United States has an excellent education system in college. And I tried to, one of the things is that other countries are trying to partner with us, and because John and Kate are now, because they've solved many problems, loved around the world. So what ends up happening is that we are trying to give Japan our college education curriculum. They are giving us the lower education, because really their SAT scores are higher than ours. Their kids have no crime. So it's not only the parents that do that, but also it has a lot to do with schooling. And then John and Kate are getting into space now. So there's a couple of places in space that they go to. Most people don't know there's a place called Proxima Centauri and Alpha Centauri, where there's believed to have life there. And when they get there,
science fiction.
It's more science fiction. And not only that, they find that they wanted to know what is the most popular book, they are asking, that would give us an idea of what, you know, culture is on Earth. And we send them, believe it or not, the most popular book, the most bought book and read book is the Bible. So we send them the Bible, and we translate it into their language, you know, because now we're communicating, you know, we have a translator tool that communicates with them. And they come back to us and they say, you know, we believe in the Ten Commandments also. So now they're trying to figure out how in the world did they know about the Ten Commandments? And it leads into what's happening with different, not only helping things in the United States and the world, but also how things are happening in other countries and what are happening. And there are also things about what they do with plants that are interesting in that book. So there's a lot of, not only are we trying to solve problems here on Earth, but we're also learning about different cultures here on Earth. Also, they go into space, and they're learning more things about that. So that's in the future books that are coming up.
Sounds very nice. So,
I hope so.
who would you consider to be your favorite author, and what about their work resonates with you the most?
Michael Creighton's very good because he has a series. He's from Florida, and he has a series called Bosch. It's like about a detective. And so I find him very interesting. I'm an author, but I don't read a lot of books. And the reason I don't read a lot of books is because I have an illness called dyslexia, which for me, I've learned how to read, but it's a slow process for me to read a book. But I enjoy movies. I go to movies all the time. And so when I write my books, I think of a movie setting and I think of what's happening and things like that. So I write the book.
So, and has their writing, you told me about, influenced your own style of writing?
Well, the Michael Creighton has a character, and he writes about that character through many books that he's written. And he has a TV series, they call Bosch. And that is, my thinking with, the first book, the third book, the fourth, and the fifth is kind of like a series. It's the same characters solving different types of problems. So we're very similar that way. That's,
So, another question. What are your aspirations and career goals for the year 2025? And what do you hope to achieve in the long run?
Well, I'm hoping people like yourself, James is behind the camera, and Jim Addison, are going to be able to convince some movie producer to make a movie out of some of my books. And also maybe some big publishing house, Simon & Schuster, to take my books and want more books. And so, that would be nice if that would happen in 25 and 26. It's all depending on you.
Okay. What do you cherish the most about being an author, and what aspects of this craft bring you the greatest joy?
Well, it's more, for me, it's like, I like it. I like writing, really, because it brings back memories of my wife, my daughter, my son.
And it's also a help for you to write, to deal with the emotions?
That's what I enjoy the most. It brings back really good memories, and it may be therapy for me, because I really enjoy the writing part. The hard part for me is the content editing that I have to go through, all of the dealings with people that are, there's some people in, not this group, but are in the writing area that are not nice, let's put it that way. And so, not nice. In other words, they're, I don't want to say the word crooks, but they're not very nice people. And so dealing with those types of people, I'm not used to. And so they have a tendency to take advantage of authors or me. And so you have to be very careful. So that's the bad part. And it really stops you from the writing part because you have to deal with the bad part also at the same time you're trying to write. So that's some of the background on authors.
Do you often connect with the readers, like today?
I really enjoy that part. You know, I enjoy meeting with you. I enjoy meeting with the people that were here today. I'll tell you one thing that I don't know if it's true of all authors, but I had some people over to my house that had read my books. And I think one lady pointed up to a picture on the wall and she said, "That's in your first book." And so when somebody reads your book and they read it so well that they can actually notice that on the wall is a picture of sunflowers that I bought my wife from Rio de Janeiro, and they see it on the wall, and what you do is, even though it's fiction, you put yourself into the book, things that you've done in, let's say, Rio de Janeiro, and what you bought there. And so when somebody recognizes something that you put in the book and they call out that, or even today, people that haven't read my book and they come in and they know a little because they've talked to you or they've talked to James and they've said, "Oh, we like your book on self-help and mental health." And so they know a little about it, and then they really talk about their problems that they've had, and you learn about, how similar and how that book may help them. So I really enjoy talking to people. I really do. I get the most enjoyment out of that part of it.
So how does the response of the readers impact your writing process?
Well, my writing process is, I don't have a set time where I sit down from 3 or 5 o'clock and start writing. I may go out I exercise every day, so I may go out for a run and then I'll have some thoughts that I want to, I said, this is interesting, let me write that down. So I don't write out a whole plot and how I want it to go. It goes day by day for me. It's like if I have some interesting things I hear or see, I don't know if all authors are this way, but I think some of the best authors are the ones that steal ideas from people or other, places. And I'm always looking at things that either on TV or movie or I may read that are interesting and how I would stick it into a book.
Can you recall a particularly memorable interaction with a reader? For example, today. You have like one memory of today.
Yeah, it's these people at the Frankfurt Book Fair are all readers. They wouldn't be here if they weren't. And they all have talk about, their mom's depressed, and so this book would be very interesting to me, and it would help me understand my mom. It would help me, the self-help book, understand what she may be going through with her mental illness. And so when people get a rough idea because they looked at the cover of what the book's about, and then they think that that book is going to help them, then that, brings a great deal of joy to me, because if you can help people, that's very important.
When you're not immersed in writing, how do you prefer to spend your time?
Getting interviewed and I do a lot of exercise. I do maybe, except when I'm on trips like this, I do usually about 2 hours or 2.5 hours of exercise. So part of it is running, doing yoga in the sauna, swimming. And so because I eat a lot, I do have to exercise probably more than the average person. So, and it keeps me healthy and keeps the brain going. So it's, my hobby, I try to get about 2 or 3 hobbies, and usually things that are interesting, like somebody introduced me to pickleball, so I'm playing pickleball now. I never played pickleball. Or going to, I've joined this Hollywood Runners Club, and so I end up running with a group of people that are much faster than me, but they're a good group of people. And then I end up meeting with these guys that I graduated from high school with, same year as me. An interesting group of people. So I try to keep myself pretty busy, and there's a reason for that. You know, it's like one I mentioned, I don't want to get fat, you know, so I have to exercise. The other is after my wife's death, it is good to get out and do things rather than just sit at home and watch TV. And so I don't have to force myself. These are interesting people and interesting things to do. So I end up doing a lot of that on the side, in addition to writing.
Reflecting back, when did the spark of desire to become an author first initiate within you?
That's a tragic story. The first book, called The Medical Project, my daughter had developed cervical cancer, and she was like 28. And I went to what we thought were the best doctors, gynecologists and whatnot, and we said, okay, I can afford to send her any place in the world. Where do you want to send? Where's the best doctors for cervical cancer? What is the procedure to follow? And what are the best hospitals for this? And they said, we can take care of this. Don't worry about it. We have enough people here, we can take care of this. 2 years later, she died. And I was just pissed off. I was very upset with the medical industry, not necessarily that doctor, because he did what he thought was right. But you should not have to know or ask a doctor and them not be able to answer, where is the best hospital to go to for cervical care? Who are the best doctors to see? I mean, does this doctor have a 90% cure rate for cervical cancer? You know, so I was going to write a technical book that was, here's what you should do. Here's how we can improve the medical industry just using our technology, our computers, our IT. So I ended up saying no one's going to buy a technical book. So I said, I got to make it fun to read. And I ended up writing an action thriller type book that is fiction, but there's a lot of truth in it. And it's all about these two people, John and Kate, that are trying to change the medical industry to really improve the medical industry. And a lot of the things that are in the book, if they would have done it before COVID came out, certainly before my daughter got cervical cancer, she would be alive today, and there probably would not be a COVID. So that book, I was writing that book trying to make it fun to read, with the idea that if somebody with a lot of money or the government did it, it would improve the medical industry. And doctors I talk to all say, you know, the medical industry can be improved. You know, they're not happy the way it is. And one of the ways to do that is use our computers that we have today.
When you find yourself grappling with writer's block or lack of inspiration, what strategies do you employ to reignite your creative spark?
I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit different, but I never got writer's block. I never had, something that I didn't want to put down in a book. And so that never happened to me. It's like I would go out for a run, let's say, and I'd come back and I want to start writing or something like that. The only thing that may stop me from writing during the day would be, which is not a bad thing, I'm out with the Hollywood Runners Club, or I'm out with some high school friends, or I'm doing certain other things, like I'm at this show. So I haven't written anything on my 5th book since I've been at this show because you're busy doing other things. I don't know. I've never had the writer's block. It's just the time that you have where you can just sit down and start writing. And I like to do that. I like to write. That's the best part.
For those aspiring writers or authors out here, do you have any practical tips or advice that could help them improve their craft? What would you recommend?
We had a lady today that came up and said she wanted to be a writer. And so I gave James that lady's phone number. He gave her his card. And, you know, that made me feel good when there's someone that wants to be a writer and they are trying to figure out how to get started or something. And that probably made her day because, my God, I have someone that's finally maybe will publish my book. And so I think most authors, at least I, want to help other writers. If they have something they put down, especially, how can you hook them up with the right people so they can publish something? And so I enjoy that part of it, helping other writers.
Then the last question.
What is the last question?
The last question, Nick. Throughout your journey as an author, what is the best piece of advice you received that has stayed with you?
I don't know if this went in a book, but I think the best thing that's happened to me throughout my life is when my wife picked me to be, I of course asked her to be my wife, but her saying yes was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. And even though she's died, her thoughts are always in my head, and she's inspired me quite a bit. Very lovely. It's the truth.
Okay, thank you, Nick, for us answering the question.
Yes, I enjoyed it.